Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're getting into the movie rankings of 2025. So our first one will be my top 10 disappointing movies of 2025 ranked. And further ado, let's gonna get straight into it. Starting off with some honorable mentions. Honorable mention of mine I have is Den of Thieves 2, Pantera. Wish it could have been a little bit better. Wolfman, another disappointing movie. It wasn't really my kind of thing, but I saw Leigh Whannell's name on it, and I was like, oh, I kind of like that. Megan 2.0, the reason I have Megan 2.0 is because I really enjoyed the first Megan, and that was a surprising movie of mine from 2023, I think it was, and 2.0 just didn't land well, unfortunately. Lilo and Stitch, I watched Lilo and Stitch when I was younger, so I kind of have that nostalgic feeling, and this one was kind of disappointing a little bit. Black Phone 2, I loved the first Black Phone. The second one was good, but it wasn't great for me. Now for my top 10. Number 10 for me I have is 28 Years Later. Going into 28 Years Later, I had some caution optimism. The trailers looked decent, not amazing, but enough to make me curious, especially as a fan of 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later. The franchise. I was hoping for a tense, engaging follow-up from some solid scares and emotional stakes. Unfortunately, the movie completely fell flat for me. The story, which centered on survivors navigating a new outbreak decades after the original virus, felt muddled and overly convoluted. The main cast included Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Jodie Comer. Tried their best, but the characters lacked depth, making it hard to care about their fates. There were a few tense moments here and there, but most of the horror elements were predictable and repetitive. Even when it tried to reference the original films, it came off as forced rather than meaningful. Overall, what I expected to be a gripping continuation ended up feeling rushed, underwhelming and disappointing, far from the intense post-apocalyptic thrill ride that the trailers hinted at. Yeah, unfortunately, number 10 for me was 28 Years Later. Number 9 for me I have is Eddington. Eddington was a major disappointment for me in 2025. The trailers looked somewhat promising. They hinted at a tense small-town drama with suspenseful stakes, but I expected more from a setup. The movie is set during the COVID-19 pandemic, where a standoff between a small-town sheriff, played by Joaquin Phoenix as Joe Cross, and the mayor, played by Pedro Pascal as Ted Garcia, sparks a power keg that pits neighbor against neighbor in Eddington, New Mexico. Sounds intense, right? Unfortunately, the execution fell flat. Austin Butler and Emma Stone were also in the cast, but their characters felt underdeveloped a little bit, and even Joaquin Phoenix and Pedro Pascal couldn't really salvage this movie. The tension that the trailer suggested never fully materialized, and much of the conflict felt forced or melodramatic. Scenes that should have been done gripping instead of dragged, and the film struggled to balance character development with a pandemic-era chaos. What had the potential to be a smart, suspenseful drama ended up feeling overblown, slow, and underwhelming. A frustrating considering that the talented cast and intriguing premise. Unfortunately, my number 9 was Eddington here. My number 8 I have is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning was such a letdown for me. The trailers looked good, full of high-octane stunts, fast-paced sequences, and the classic Ethan Hunt charisma. But the final product didn't live up to the hype. It did, but it didn't. Tom Cruise returned as Ethan Hunt, leading a mission that supposed to prevent a global cyber catastrophic, with Rebecca Ferguson, Simon Pegg, and Hayley Atwell returning in supporting roles. On paper, it sounded like another thrilling installment in the franchise, but the movie dragged in the middle with convoluted plot points and overstuffed exposition that killed the tension. The action sequences, while visually impressive, felt repetitive after a while, and even Cruise's charisma couldn't fully carry the film. The villain, played by I'm sorry if I get this name wrong, Isaiah Morales, is that how you say that? Has potential, but was underwritten and failed to leave a lasting impression. Overall, what I expected to be an adrenaline-pumping thrill ride to end the Mission Impossible franchise, it ended up feeling bloated, messy, and disappointing compared to the slick, smart pacing of previous Mission Impossible entries. My number 7 for me, I have is a movie called Him. Him was a major disappointment for me in 2025. The trailers looked decent, hinting at a tense psychological thriller, but the movie completely failed to deliver on that promise. The story follows Cameron Cade, played by Tyreek Withers, a rising quarterback who suffers a potentially career-ending injury after being attacked by an unhinged fan. Just when all seems lost, his hero, Isaiah White, played by Marlon Wayans, offers to train him at an isolated compound. However, as the training intensifies, Isaiah's charisma turns dark, sending Cameron down a disorientated rabbit hole that may cost him more than he's ever bargained for. While the premise had a lot of tension potential, the movie struggled with pacing and suspense, and the darker psychological elements were inconsistent. Tyreek Withers gave a solid performance, and Marlon Wayans showed glimpses of menace, but the writing and direction undercut the story, making the twist feel predictable and then tension flat. What could have been a gripping thriller ended up feeling uneven, confusing, and ultimately disappointing, unfortunately. My number 6 for me, I have is Captain America Brave New World. Captain America Brave New World was a huge disappointment for me in 2025. The trailers looked good, full of classic superhero spectacle, action, and the promise of a compelling new storyline, but the movie completely failed to live up to expectations. The story follows Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, as he faces a new threat that challenges not just his abilities, but also his moral compass. The film's cast included Anthony Mackie returning as Sam, brought the same energy, but even the performances couldn't save the movie from its narrative and pacing problems. The plot felt overstuffed with too many side characters and convoluted twists that distracted from the core story. Key action sequences, while visually impressive, lacked tension in several moments that could have been emotional or thrilling. All filling fell flat. Overall, what the trailers promised as an exciting contribution of the Captain America saga ended up feeling uneven, messy, and ultimately disappointing for a franchise that usually delivers solid superhero entertainment. I know why this movie wasn't great. It's probably because of the massive reshoots that they had kind of just ruined it for me. My number 5, surprisingly, Wicked for Good. Wicked for Good was a big disappointment for me in 2025. The trailers looked decent, promising a dark, magical tale with strong performances, but the movie failed to live up to expectations. The story follows Elphaba, played by Cynthia Erivo, now demonetized as the Wicked Witch of the West and living in exile of the Zion Forest, is that what you call it? While Glinda, played by Ariana Grande, enjoys life at the palace in the Emerald City, basking in fame and popularity. When an angry mob rises against Elphaba, she must reunite with Glinda to transform herself and all of Oz for good. On paper, it sounded compelling, but the movie struggled with pacing and coherence, with key plot points feeling rushed or poorly explained. The dynamic between Elphaba and Glinda had potential for tension and drama, but it was undeveloped, leaving the emotional beats flat. While Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande did their best, the writing and direction couldn't support them, resulting in a film that even felt uneven, messy, and ultimately disappointing, despite a promising concept and a talented cast. Yeah, to be honest, I enjoyed the first movie. The second one, really disappointing for me. My number 4 for me I have is Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was a huge disappointment for me. The trailers looked okay, they teased creepy animatronics and suspenseful night, but the final movie didn't live up to expectations. The story picked up 1 year after the supernatural nightmare at Freddy's Fazbear Pizza. Former security guard Mike, played by Josh Hutcherson, had been keeping the truth from his 11-year-old sister, Abby, played by Piper Rubio, after the fate of the animatronic friends. When Abby sneaks out to reconnect with Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, it sets off a terrifying chain of events that uncovers dark secrets about Freddy's origin. On paper, it had potential for a suspense horror, but the execution was lacking. The animatronics, while iconic, were I can't speak. Often CGI heavy looked and more silly than frightening, and the pacing was uneven. Elizabeth Lail as Vanessa and Hutchinson tried to bring emotional weight to the story, but the characters were underdeveloped and the tension never truly landed. What trailer suggested as a gripping horror experience ended up being predictable, frustrating, and ultimately disappointing for fans and newcomers alike. I think the main problem with Five Nights at Freddy's 2 for me was it's only for fans that really know the whole lore of Five Nights at Freddy's. That's really what this movie was for. And it's a little, I get it, but it's unfair for people because the first movie really, it was, but it didn't explore heavy into it. This one definitely did, and I think that's why it fell flat for a lot of people, like myself. I never played the games. I enjoyed the first movie. I know these characters. I know who they are, and I've played the game maybe once, but that's really about it. And the movie it was disappointing for me. Number 3 for me, Bring Her Back. Bring Her Back was a major disappointment for me. The trailers looked somewhat intriguing. They hinted at a tense supernatural story with strong family dynamics, but the movie failed to deliver on that promise. The story follows Andy, played by Billy Barnett, as his sister Piper, played by Sora Wong, who's experiencing unsettling events while living with her foster mother, Laura, played by Sally Hawkins. Laura's grief and hidden secrets slowly pulled the children into chilling supernatural ordeal on paper, and it sounded like it could have been a suspenseful and emotionally compelling film, which, I'm going to be honest, it was, but it wasn't. I think this movie was disappointing in the way that Talk to Me, I was like my top 10 or my top 15 favourite movies of, I forgot what year it came out, but it was like in my top 10, top 15. And this movie, well, it's not, and I think it was just a little bit, it was good, I'm not going to lie, it was a good movie, but I just think it was disappointing in the way that the trailers looked really good. I really liked the trailers, and to be honest, I didn't hear anything about this movie until I went to the movies one day, and I saw the trailer, and I was like, oh damn, the Raka brothers, the Filippo brothers are back doing more movies. So I was like, this sounds quite interesting. And I watched the movie, and it was fine. It was good. I think Sally Hawkins was probably the best part of this movie. I think her performance is fantastic. I really enjoyed her performance. The chillingness that she gives off, I think, really works well. And I think it's a really eerie movie, which I liked. But yeah, I mean, the reason why it's a disappointing movie is because Talk to Me was like the top of the top, and then this movie was just a little bit, it wasn't the best. Well, I'm sorry, compared to Talk to Me, if you know what I mean. My number 2 for me, I have, is Avatar: Fire and Ash. I know a lot of people are going to hate this, I'm sorry. I think this movie looked stunning, you can't lie. Full of vibrant visuals, impressive CGI, and the promise of an epic contribution of the Pandora saga. But the movie itself didn't live up to that hype for myself. I think this movie... Now, with Avatar, I'm always a hit or miss with these films. The first Avatar movie, I did not like. The second Avatar movie, The Way of Water, I think it was my top 10 favourite movies of the year. And then this movie, I think it was still a very good movie, but it was definitely another letdown for the franchise. And so yeah, Avatar movies for me are really hit or miss at this point, unfortunately. I think the characters were really interesting in this movie. I really enjoyed them. I think the emotional depth in this worked well. I think the story was okay. It wasn't the best, but I just think it was a disappointing movie compared to the other two. Even though I would say that this movie was probably a little bit better than the first Avatar, but not as better as The Way of Water for sure. But my number 1 most disappointing movie of 2025 is Karate Kid Legends. Karate Kid Legends was by far the most disappointing movie of 2025. The trailers looked okay. They promised an exciting martial arts story with nostalgia, returning characters, and flashy action, but the movie failed to live up to the promise. The story followed Li Feng, played by Ben Wang, a kung fu prodigy who moved to New York City with his mother and struggles to fit in with his new classmates, while dealing with the weight of his past. When a new friend needs his help, Lee enters a karate competition, but his skills aren't alone aren't enough. With guidance from Mr. Han, played by Jackie Chan, and Daniel LaRusso, played by Ralph Macchio, he learns to merge two styles into one for the ultimate showdown. On paper it sounded thrilling, but the pacing was uneven. The story was predictable, and the many action sequences felt over-choreographed, without real impact. While the cast did their best, including Macchio and Chan, bringing back some nostalgia charm, the writing and execution undercut the efforts. What I expected to be an inspiring, high-energy martial arts film ended up feeling clunky, shallow, and ultimately disappointing. A missed opportunity to deliver both nostalgia and excitement. Yeah, I was really disappointed by Karate Kid Legends. I was so looking forward to this film. It was like one of my anticipated movies of 2025. But it just didn't work for me. I think it's an okay movie, but it's not great. And it sucks to say this because I'm a big Karate Kid fan. And I didn't really know how Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio were going to work. Like, I don't know how they were going to get introduced. I think the characters getting introduced, to be honest, wasn't a big fan of that. Like, of how they got introduced into this movie. Wasn't a big fan of that. But yeah, I think this movie was good. I'm not going to lie, this movie was a good movie, but it just had its problems. It's an okay movie, but had major problems. And yeah, unfortunately that's it. And yeah, so Karate Kid Legends is my number one most disappointing movie of 2025. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel. It'll be a massive help. Thanks for watching. Take care. Goodbye.